Try something smart to chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. And of course, it is Wednesday, the 14th of January 2026. And we do hope that you're having a very blessed day indeed. I'm your host, Alex George Jr. You can get us at our website, rcistlucia.com. We're streaming live there. We're also streaming live on Facebook. And you just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. Of course, you're also available on radio, no doubt, 101.1 FM. I look back in time today, in the year 1784, the United States Congress of the Confederation ratified the Treaty of Paris, signed on September the 3rd, 1783, ending the American Revolutionary War and forwarded to the British government. In the year 2011, on this day, the Tunisian President Ben Ali fled to Saudi Arabia after popular protests known as the Jasmine Revolution. Look, of course, some birthdays that we just want to mention for today. It's send out some birthday greetings to Mr. Marcin Senkwa. Happy birthday to you, sir. Hope you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. And also to Miss Christia Dolce, happy birthday to you. Wishing you a wonderful and blessed birthday as well. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
Welcome back to the Lunchroom here on Radio Caribbean International. Now, we do want to make mention of some individuals who unfortunately have transitioned to a greater plane, a greater height. And I speak of, in the first instance, Dr. Gregor Ernest Williams. And Dr. Williams was certainly an individual who spent quite a lot of his time dedicated to the protection and promotion of St. Lucia's heritage and St. Lucia's history. Although he started off in a very different profession, and also later on became the first first principal of the VA4 Secondary School back in 1960, and a post that he served in for a number of years, and really taking that institution, which was then effectively, when it was opened, the first secondary school outside of Castries, and really the first public secondary school in St. Lucia. Previously, the two secondary schools that were existing at that time, they were both run by the Catholic Church here in St. Lucia, St. Mary's College and St. Joseph's Convent. And it was the VA4 Secondary School that, when it opened, was finally an opportunity for individuals to get a public secondary school education. And of course, it was established in the south of the island. At that time, the shift was occurring in the south. The Bean Airfield, which was established and run by U.S. military authorities as a result of the fighting during World War II, that was still, up until the 1950s, was still part of the U.S. Military system, and it was effectively owned by the U.S. government. And it was not until I think somewhere around 1959, 1960 in terms of negotiations for the realization that these bases could be, and the lands that these bases were found were under was transferred to local authorities, that finally there was an opportunity for development and in those areas. And the establishment of the V4 Secondary School was part of that effort. I think it was, in fact, funded by the U.S. government, in fact. And at that time, of course, they were very much interested in trying to provide some support to these islands. And so we saw Mr. Gregor Williams taking up the position as principal of that secondary school and effectively putting it on a very good footing. And we've seen since then a number of individuals coming out of that secondary school. And of course, right now, of course, it's one of the top performers by way of academics, but also in the area of sport. And in fact, not just that, it's actually now also a sixth form secondary school as well. So Dr. Williams, however, is very well known within the St. Lucian context, more so for his being a historian. And he played a very important part in organizations such as the St. Lucia Archaeological and Historical Society, which is somewhat of the mother of all the heritage societies in St. Lucia. It's the oldest one, being formed back in about 1954. At that time, being formed by effectively a group of three expats, the likes of Father Charles Jess, B.H. Easter, who was formerly a headmaster of St. Mary's College, and also the then headmaster of St. Mary's College, I think Brother Canis Collins. They were the ones who effectively started this St. Lucia Archaeological and Historical Society, recognizing that the island did in fact have a very interesting, a very layered, multi-layered history and heritage. And so they were very active at that point, engaging in their own form of a research into the antiquities, engaging in some level of rudimentary archaeology, setting up of a museum, which in fact had been at St. Mary's College for some time. And they saw it as part of that process of education in a formal way, but also in terms of public education, broader community-based education. And so the St. Lucia Archaeological and Historical Society was one of the areas that Gregor Williams did gravitate to and support their work, and in terms of even research and publications that they were engaged in. He was also active in the St. Lucia National Trust, which sort of was a daughter of the ANH, being formed in 1975, and also even later on was also a member of the Folk Research Center, now the Monsignor Patrick Anthony Folk Research Center. So Dr. Williams was certainly part of a number of these entities, and he was a sort of an individual who you may perceive to be a bit of a purist when it came to the idea of preservation. You know, there's that famous song out of Guyana, speaking about the dispute between the Essequibo region of Guyana. And, you know, that song says, you know what, we're not giving up not even a blade of grass. And that tended to be the ethos, the approach of Dr. Williams. He did not want to give up a square foot in terms of losing of St. Lucia's history. He saw it all as being very valuable, and he was certainly willing to fight over every single blade of grass or every single artifact or relic, and that certainly typified the spirit of the man. He was very, very passionate about his island, his home, and he certainly was very willing as well to share that very openly to whoever was willing to listen. And of course, history is about stories. Ideally, it's about telling accurate stories or factual stories, of course. Um, but a lot of history before that, of course, was myth and legend and creating of this the idea of where did we come from, and he did see that it was important to recognize that quite often the history that was passed down came from a particular frame and a particular bias and from a particular time, and in itself had to be challenged and had to be analyzed within objective and even more current knowledge. And he did that, and he certainly did that in respect of a lot of the myths that we um, were sometimes passed down through during the age of empire and the colonial era. The idea example of St. Lucia being discovered by Christopher Columbus, who never ever set foot on St. Lucia or anywhere close to it. And others like we were quote unquote 7 times British and 7 times French, and a lot of that certainly was challenged and critiqued by Dr. Williams in recognizing that the individuals, the people themselves who continue to live right here, and our ancestors, their history certainly needs to be told and needs to be understood. And we need to understand ourselves within that context. And so there were certain terminologies that he certainly embraced that still up to today have a certain level of in some quarters of being seen to be negative. So for example, he embraced the term negmaon, right? And he saw it as a badge of honor. He saw it that this concept that he is a negmaon, all right, somebody who can roam free is a great thing, right? That he was able to gain his own freedom, and he can enjoy that freedom that we can all enjoy it today. Being able to roam our country is certainly something that we have to, in fact, celebrate. And so, even though it had a negative connotation during the colonial period, he saw it as a very different matter. He saw these individuals as freedom fighters, as individuals who were willing to give up their lives for their freedom and the freedom of their family. And so it was certainly very telling that of course, as a born St. Lucian, he was now in a position, and he certainly did so, to recast the history and the understanding of who we are. Of course, the work of individuals like Dr. Williams are still perhaps not appropriately appreciated, and certainly there is a lot more to be done within the context of our understanding of ourselves and what that means for our people moving forward. And quite often, it's very easy for uh, society to say, you know what, this is all in the past. This has no bearing on who we are today. The world has moved on, but there is a value in self worth and understanding of the worth of an individual. What that does in terms of one's psychology, what that does in terms of one's mental well-being, is something to be certainly considered. And it builds a confident society. It builds confident people who appreciate their worth, who appreciate what they can bring to the world and wherever they may go or whatever they may do. And so that is certainly a very important aspect in the work of individuals like Dr. Williams, and being able to uncover that, look, this is something that we are to be proud of, that that our history is something to be celebrated, to be proud of, that we, in fact, it is a story of resilience, it's a story of uh, of yes, suffering, of getting up and continuing to strive. And so certainly it is very, very important. And we're seeing that now. Whereas perhaps before, a lot of the historical research that would have been done in the 1950s and 60s and at that time focused a lot on perhaps the European frame of understanding of what the stories may have been, and there was also a degree of fascination in terms of Amerindians, because these were people who were lost almost, and so there was an interest there. But now we're seeing around the world, and certainly even right here in the Caribbean, an appreciation and a desire to see, well, what is the role of the African who was coming now, who came into this island? How did they integrate? How did they survive? Where did they live? How did they live? And that too is an area of great interest now, as we see efforts in places like Barbados, for example, the desire to unearth slave burial grounds. And there's, of course, a bit of an interesting matter of debate. There's an unfortunate situation quite recently, and no doubt it would have been something that Mr. Dr. Williams would have been certainly very upset about, that we saw up on the Mon, where there's actually a military cemetery, a cemetery that was originally started by the French, utilized by the British in later periods, and still exists, and where there are, in fact, tombs and monuments being present, that there was vandalism. Apparently, someone went and tried to destroy one of the tombs, or was trying to rip apart, to salvage the bricks of some of the tombs that were there. And very, very unfortunate in that context. But there's a debate then in the minds of some people. Well, why should we even care about these tombs? Right? These are just tombs of colonizers. These are the tombs of people who oppressed us, and I could say certainly that this certainly would not have been a viewpoint of Dr. Williams, because in as much as he was a Negmawo, he identified as that. He certainly had an appreciation of the holistic nature of history, that you cannot engage in erasure, that you cannot engage in trying to wipe out one aspect of your history for another. That is not ever going to be a really meaningful way of understanding who you are, because the history of your oppressor is part of your history. And understanding that is, in fact, very important too. And the very bricks that you may be seeing were probably laid by your ancestors, perhaps under subjugation, maybe, but then they were still laid there. So it is part of that story. And when you look at across the world, and of course, places that are fought over very much, you look at the Holy Land, for example, uh, currently Gaza and Israel or Palestine, if you prefer, and you look at what's going on, and you look at an area like that, and you see the layers and layers and layers of different people who came through, whether through the prehistoric period, whether you're talking about influences out of Egypt and colonization of that region. You see influences of the people themselves who were Canaanite, if you like, and how they sort of differentiated themselves. And many will tell you that, even though in the Bible you will hear about Canaanites and Israelites, they will say that, look, these people were actually genetically the same, right? And they were just one group was trying to differentiate themselves from another group for a lot of reasons, maybe politically or whatever the case may be, right? So you've got influences of many kingdoms, the Syrians and the Persians, and then later on the Greeks through Alexander, and then the Romans, and you see this going on right up into this current era, influences of Europeans, and so you've got this layer upon layer upon layer of history, and trying to destroy one aspect to the benefit of another is never going to really tell the true story. So it is certainly very, very important that we have a good sense of our identity, a good sense of self. And we certainly do want to thank, individuals like Dr. Gregor Williams and the contribution that he has made in this regard. It's certainly a life of service in this very important aspect of self-identity. And so, again, condolences to his family and to his friends and all those who, of course, his life, who knew him very well and whose lives he has touched. That's our dish of the day. We're going to take in our weather report at this time. And then, of course, when we come back, we'll also open up the lines to take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have times and things, sets, mixes and grow. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
National Consular 101.1. It's now time for a weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tile and Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours, winds will be blowing from the east near 21 miles per hour or 33 kilometers per hour. The weather partly cloudy skies becoming cloudy at times with widely scattered showers. And there is an advisory in air which reads small craft operators and sea beavers are advised to exercise caution due to above normal seas. And the forecast for the Lesser Antilles. Partly cloudy skies becoming cloudy at times with some scattered showers over the Windward Islands. Over the Leeward Islands, it will be fair to partly cloudy with a few showers. And the weather summary, the Atlantic high pressure system will maintain light to moderate easterly winds across the region during the next couple of days. Also, weak, unstable conditions associated with a mid-level trough will cause periods of cloudiness with some scattered showers over the central and southern Lesser Antilles. Meanwhile, patches of low-level clouds drifting along the wind flow will produce a few showers over the northern portion of the region during the forecast period. And this was your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talenback.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have times and things, sets, mixes and grow. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bella Rosa, Rockland Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also reach us on our WhatsApp number. That is 284-6001. Again, 284-6001. So, of course, we do hope that you can call in and join in on the conversation that we are having. Now, of course, over the past couple of days, we have been focused quite a bit on the matter of geopolitics and seeing the movement at play around the world and questioning what are the drivers to some of these actions that are being taken by the United States of America, particularly the interest right now in Venezuela, the world's largest reserves of oil and gas by far. And many have said, well, it's not so important. The oil is not that important, really. But yeah, it is very, very, very important. And there's no getting away from that aspect of what is certainly driving much of this interest. We speak about the other, the corollary to that as well in just a bit, but we're taking a call at this time. First for the day. Let's go to the phone lines. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hi, caller. How are you doing? Happy New Year to you and all the best. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Very much so. Yep, very, very, very much so indeed. And I mean, it's impacting everything that we're doing right about now, right? In terms of our attempts to shift away from the dependence on it, but yet still, even as we're trying to shift away from that, you are seeing countries trying to secure their future by ensuring that these reserves are within their reach. So yeah, it is certainly for a blessing and a curse all at the same time. Yeah, thanks very much for that point, caller. Mm. Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is certainly. I mean, it's the beach of the city, right? So yeah, you're right. You're seeing a lot of multiple users. Lots of people want to make a dollar, and they're doing so through different means. And the whole management of many of these stores certainly has to be looked at. I mean, the other one that comes to mind are the cycling tours. We're seeing a number of these cycling tours, and people are literally coming up on a highway. We don't have any cycle lanes. It's not safe for the cyclists. It is an impact on the traffic as well. So how those things are actually planned and programmed, yeah, they definitely need to be looked at. I mean, are there better places perhaps that some of these tours could actually occur? But you're right about the zoning. In fact, I think back to now deceased Mr. Nigel Mitchell, who was in the Ministry of Tourism, and I know he was very active in the looking at. I think there was a committee, the Watercraft Management Committee, that was looking at demarcation of some of our beaches, and I think in the Rodney Bay area was one where they were looking at. And again, it's the layers of, I guess, bureaucracy, if you want to call it, because one of the players is the St. Lucia Air and Seaport Authority. In the case of Rodney Bay, it's zoned, quote unquote, as a port, and so they have certain levels of control over what happens there. But of course, perhaps from their perspective, these are actually tourism activities, so they shouldn't be the ones necessarily having to pay for the demarcation of swimming areas. But we've seen far too many cases where people have been injured as a result of these types of motorized watercraft hitting people in the water, and that is not good. So certainly we can have, maybe we need areas that are zoned for those types of watercraft, like not just watercraft, but the motorized one, because you can have people maybe with paddle boats and sailboats that are not in any sort of major hindrance or safety hazard to the ordinary person. But I mean, so all of those things have to be zoned. Yeah, certainly. Swimming areas where persons can swim, where people. So whatever applies. Well, what has been done in respect of Soufrière to some degree with the Soufrière Marine Management Area, and I think there's one that's sort of around in the Canaries, I think, West Coast, whatnot. But we really have to replicate that, and the management of all our water spaces. And there's a whole project I think that's being done right now, the Unleashing the Blue Economy, UBEC, I think it is, the World Bank project. And I really wish that some of those funds could be directed towards tackling some of these types of issues. Where can you have moorings? Where can you have diving? That's another issue, the scuba diving and the snorkeling. How to do that safely is important as well. Where can you have fish priority areas? A lot of these things have to be, and of course, the most recent one in terms of fads. Oh, that's a bit of a pun, but I'm speaking of the CMOS activities. Yeah, that's another one where you've got some conflicts, and I think there are some attempts by the St. Lucia Conservation Fund to look at some mapping and demarcation in the Savans Bay area, I believe, where there are a lot of these CMOS cultivators. But it's an area, it's a point of interest in a lot of coastal regions right now around St. Lucia. So very, very important point. Thanks very much for raising that, caller. All right, have a good one. And of course, the other issue that we still have, which is quite often not very much discussed, or maybe very hushly discussed, is the water quality. The offshore water quality is still a major concern. We've got a lot of, unfortunately, untreated wastewater, untreated sewage that is ending up in these bays, in these near-shore areas, coastal areas, and people, of course, want to enjoy the beach. They want to come to the Caribbean. They want to be able to get into the water and splash around and go for a swim. And I don't think they want to be coming out with air infections or anything that could potentially make their vacations or make their holiday time unpleasurable. And so it's certainly something that needs due consideration. I know there's been a degree of monitoring that is done, that used to be done certainly by SEHI, now CAFA, but looking at some of these areas. But in many of our coastal villages, which have, of course, since grown in population, we don't have any proper sewage systems, and that remains a major concern. Even quite recently, ongoing concerns regarding the VG Beach amenities facility at VG Beach, and the issue with, I think, their packaged sewage system there has led for a number of people to be raising the alarm about it. And that's just one small facility. When you think about the scale of what exists in some of these towns and villages, it's an even greater level, far larger numbers of people and a mix of activities. And one of the major sources as well comes from agriculture and livestock farming. People who have their piggeries, and that's a major source of effluent. And so even the location of these facilities, how they are cleaned, how they are managed, they tend to use up a lot of water. A lot of times people want to be close to the rivers because they want to be able to have a source of water for cleaning and flushing and all of that. But then where does that go? So it ends up going down into these rivers and right out to these estuary areas and into these areas where people want to swim and enjoy themselves. So we have a number of these sort of somewhat silent issues that are there, that very continue to be there, and required at some point certainly consideration as to how they in fact are dealt with. I could think of perhaps the Marigot area, for example. That's another area. You got a lot of commercial, touristic use, but it's a very, very well sheltered little bay. And of course, the amount of circulation that you get in there is not so great, and it could be a little pungent on evenings. So it's certainly things that we've got to be thinking about. So as much as we would like to see the increase in tourism, the increase in more individuals coming to enjoy our island, there are these potential impacts. They are real impacts. I shouldn't even call them potential, because they are certainly already significant impacts in that regard. So certainly we've got to be thinking about that. And of course, we're speaking about wastewater on that end of it, but on the other end, in terms of potable water, that is also already we are seeing the issues there. In fact, I think we do have a clip from this week's Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre's pre-cabinet press briefing, where he in fact is imploring St. Lucians to start thinking and start taking on the matter of rainwater harvesting as being part of the solution to tackle our very real water scarcity issues right here in St. Lucia. Let's take in a listen.
Wasco will not be repaired tomorrow. Let's harvest water. That was the repeated call made by Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre at Monday's pre-cabinet press briefing. The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Climate Change on Monday forwarded a press release urging the public to store and conserve water amidst the current dry season. Echoing these calls, the Prime Minister made a direct plea to the citizens of St. Lucia to evaluate their homes' water situations. While St. Lucians around the island expressed dissatisfaction with intermittent water shutoffs by water and sewage company Wasco, Pierre called for citizens to take actions to ensure their own water supplies before the threat of further drought intensifies.
Let's harvest water. Let's harvest water. When you go to your home tonight, look at the guttering at your house and see how we can save some of that water in a tank. At least you can use it to flush our toilets, to wash our cars. Let's look at that. Because why is it Wasco will not be repaired tomorrow?
While large black water tanks installed at homes, particularly at those at higher elevations, are already a common investment, Pierre wants the public to move beyond simply conserving paid tap water and to take advantage of the free water that falls from the rooftops.
Very simple. Let us harvest water. When the rain falls, the water just... People have tanks, but the tanks that they have is to store Wasco's water.
Beyond the pipes leading to barrels that the everyday citizen can install at homes, Pierre also spoke on the untouched water sources that require an injection of funds to exploit and incentivize. The tourism industry, through its hotel room amenities for guests and extensive maintenance, consumes massive amounts of processed Wasco water, which, Pierre says, could potentially be offset by using desalinated seawater instead. Pierre also mentioned the possibility of engaging stakeholders willing to find potential groundwater that may be available to take pressure off the island's rainwater-filled dams.
It's a problem that I agree will not be solved tomorrow. Desalination, we have to look at that. We probably have to give incentives to hotels for that. And Wasco also has to look at a lot of things. There's an idea that there's groundwater in St. Lucia. People are saying that there's groundwater in St. Lucia. Wasco will now have to seriously look into working with people who believe they can explore groundwater.
While the public often places the responsibility on Wasco for water outages, the company's capacity to provide its services are heavily influenced by the aging pipe and dam infrastructure on the island. Pierre reported that Parliament will soon discuss a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank to fund works on a major compromised pipeline whose spillage causes Wasco a significant loss in revenue.
And this is why the road costs are so expensive, because I've said that we're not fixing any roads unless you can get the pipes, the plumbing done before. That is costly. So the Wasco issue is not going to be solved tomorrow. And no one can solve it tomorrow because no government will have $100 million or $20 million.
While the Prime Minister laid out suggestions for the reduced national dependence on Wasco and traditional water systems, he reiterated the financial support that his government supplies on a monthly basis to the water and sewage company to ensure that piped water is affordable and accessible to as many St. Lucians as possible.
Every month, apart from the normal subvention, the government subsidizes Wasco every month with $1.2 million. Part of that money is used to pay Wasco's electricity bills, because Wasco owed Lucilec millions of dollars. So part of that money goes straight to Lucilec, so that Lucilec bill can be lowered, and the other goes to Wasco's operations. Plus the fact that the Wasco government also gives a subvention to Wasco. So government is supporting Wasco to the best of its fiscal ability.
For Choice News Now, I am Shine Savory.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Of course, that coming out of the Office of the Prime Minister and Choice News Now. The importance of water, and undoubtedly, and the water issues, given the fact that we're already seeing perhaps a very early dry season already impacting us, is certainly going to be very, very topical over the next couple of months. Already we've been struggling with the challenges with respect to water. And so it is going to be highly important that individuals exercise water conservation as much as possible. It means looking at how you use your water, whether in fact you've got any leaks, whether you're utilizing your water to be washing your cars or engaging in things like watering the lawn, whatever the case may be, but things that are not really essential. Certainly that cannot be a good idea at this point. So water conservation is very important. I remember there was a time when Hugo Chavez in Venezuela was promoting the 3 minutes bath, that you really don't need to shower for much longer than 3 minutes. Some people may say that's not enough, whatever the case may be. But can we, in fact, certainly do our part, each and every individual, to be able to try to conserve on our water use? It certainly will help overall. But of course, the plea being made by the Prime Minister that in addition to that, there certainly has to be at a national level a shift and a thrust towards rainwater harvesting, which is something that is very, very much in place and common in the Leeward Islands, the likes of Antigua, for example. If you go further up into isolated islands like Bermuda, they very much depend on rooftop catchments to be able to get water for storage for a lot of the non-essential things like flushing of toilets. And in fact, even for the essential things as well, they actually do treatment on that water and use it. So certainly we've got to be thinking about just that. Just a very quick update, the story that seems to be causing lots of interest, and that is a media alert or originally coming out of Fox News that reports indicating the U.S. to suspend visa processing for 75 countries. And although the headlines seem to be in some instances speaking about all visa processing, in other instances we're seeing a reference being made to immigrant visa processing. So i.e. people who want to be coming in as immigrants. So very different sets of reports, but certainly the general idea that 75 countries going to be impacted from January the 21st, 2026. And their source is a U.S. Department of State memo that has not yet been publicly released. And several media outlets, including Fox News, Newsweek, and Reuters, report that the U.S. Department of State has directed consular posts to pause visa adjudications for 75 countries while the agency reassesses its screening and vetting procedures. According to these reports, the pause will begin January 21st, 2026. The internal memo instructs consular officers to refuse visas under existing law during the review period. No timeline has been provided for when visa processing may resume. A State Department spokesperson confirmed the suspension to Reuters, but did not elaborate on the plan. The memo referenced in reporting has not been released publicly, and the State Department has not issued an official announcement. And of course, a very long list of countries, 75 countries. And of course, if you will be wondering, in the mix there, you've got the likes of Antigua and Barbuda, the Bahamas. I'm just giving you the Caribbean ones, of course. Obviously, Cuba, Grenada is in that mix, of course. And you go down the list into the S's: St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines are on that list as well. A very, very extensive list. Jamaica is another one in that in that list. In recent months, the Trump administration has introduced several significant immigration policy shifts aimed at expanding screening and enforcement across the U.S. immigration system. In November 2025, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, issued a proposal to rescind the 2022 public charge regulations and restore broader discretion for officers to determine whether applicants may become dependent on government benefits, a rule change that has not yet been finalized. So a lot certainly in that space, which we are going to be looking at. But just to point out, according to French source Le Monde, it is the immigrant visa procedures for nationals from 75 countries. And the point being made, it does not affect tourist, business, or other visas. And so again, it appears that it's about persons who are looking to migrate to the United States, and he's pretty much putting a pause on that process. And that coming from, as I said, Le Monde. Quote, the Trump administration is bringing an end to the abuse of America's immigration system by those who would extract wealth from the American people. State Department spokesman Tommy Pigott said immigrant visa processing from these 75 countries will be paused while the State Department reassesses immigration processing procedures to prevent the entry of foreign nationals who would take welfare and public benefits, he said. The latest move does not affect tourist, business, or other visas, including for soccer fans seeking to visit for this year's World Cup, although the Trump administration has vowed to vet all applicants' social media histories. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt posted on X that the countries affected would include Somalia, whose people Trump has attacked in heated terms after Somalian immigrants were involved in a funding scandal in Minnesota, as well as Russia and Iran. Leavitt linked to a Fox News article that said other countries affected would include a number of countries with friendly relations with the United States, including Brazil, Egypt, and Thailand. Trump has made no secret of his desire to reduce immigration by people who are not of European descent. He has described Somalis as garbage, who would go back to where they came from, and instead said he was open to Scandinavians moving to the U.S. The State Department on Monday said that it has revoked more than 100,000 visas since Trump's return to the White House, a one-year record. Last month, the Department of Homeland Security said that the Trump administration has deported more than 605,000 people and that 2.5 million others left on their own. And that is coming from the French news agency Le Monde. That story there, pretty clear as to the agenda regarding the approach by the Trump administration on this matter. Immigrant visas from 75 countries, including St. Lucia, and pretty much the majority of CARICOM countries are going to be suspended. No indication as to how long that will be for. Business and tourist visas, the B1, B2 visas, and I suppose others are still going to be processed. So that update there, that story, very much live, coming out just a couple minutes ago. That's all the time we have today here at the Lunchroom, and we do hope that you can join us again tomorrow for another program of the Lunchroom here on Radio Caribbean International. Have a good one.